"I think there's been a mistake," I told the receptionist. She looked confused. "No, ma'am," she said. She checked the computer screen again. "Mr. Carter left about 10 minutes ago." She smiled politely. "With his wife." Silence. I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's impossible," I said. "I'm his wife." The receptionist slowly looked back at the monitor, then at me, and the color drained from her face. Have you ever discovered a lie that completely changed how you saw someone you loved? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. My name is Claire Carter. I have been married to Richard Carter for 19 years. I want to tell you how we got here because it didn't start with a lie. It started with coffee. Every single morning for 19 years, Richard made 2 cups of coffee before he left for work, one for himself, one for me, mine with cream, no sugar, exactly the way I liked it since our first apartment in Cleveland. Every Sunday we did the grocery shopping together, and he always let our daughter Molly ride in the cart until she got too big for it. We watched the news together on the couch every night, his arm around my shoulders, my feet in his lap. He kissed my forehead every morning before he left, even after he became CEO, even after the mornings got busier and the meetings got earlier. He used to call me at lunch, just to hear my voice, he said. He left me notes sometimes folded under my coffee mug, simple things: drive safe today, love you more than yesterday. I trusted this man with everything I had. That's why what happened felt so impossible. I still don't know exactly when it started to change. I think it happened slowly, the way a house settles. So slowly, you don't notice the cracks until one day the door won't shut right anymore. Richard became distracted. He stopped making eye contact when I talked to him at dinner. He was always working late, later than the promotion should have required. Business trips became frequent, sometimes twice a month, sometimes longer than they needed to be. His phone was always face down on the table now. He started wearing cologne I didn't recognize, expensive, unfamiliar. New suits appeared in the closet that I never went shopping for. He became protective over his laptop, closing it quickly whenever I walked into the room. He forgot my birthday that year, the first time in 19 years, and when I mentioned it quietly, not even angry, just hurt, he said he'd make it up to me, and then he didn't. He stopped complimenting me. He stopped noticing when I got my hair done. I told myself, maybe he's just stressed, the company's going through a merger. Marriage has seasons, I shouldn't nag him. I blamed myself. I want you to understand that because so many women blame themselves first. I tried everything. I made his favorite dinners, the pot roast his mother taught me, slow cooked all afternoon. I suggested marriage counseling, and he came twice, then said he was too busy for the 3rd appointment. I planned a weekend getaway to the lake house we hadn't visited in years, and he canceled the morning we were supposed to leave, said something came up at the office. I bought a new dress for his company's spring gala. I got my hair done the way he used to like it. I lost weight I didn't need to lose. I bought skincare that cost more than I want to admit. New perfume, the kind from the counter at the mall, the kind that smelled like the woman I used to be. For our anniversary, I wrote him a handwritten letter for pages, everything I loved about him, everything I remembered from 19 years together. He read the first page at the dinner table, folded it, said thank you, and put it in his jacket pocket. I found it 3 weeks later, still folded, in the pocket of a jacket he hadn't worn since. He never finished reading it. That's when I started noticing smaller things. His assistant, a young woman named Priya, stopped making eye contact with me whenever I called the office. There were charges on our credit card statement I never made, a jewelry store downtown, a hotel 2 states away, a florist I'd never used. Family photos slowly disappeared from his office desk, replaced with nothing, just empty frames turned face down in a drawer I found by accident. He stopped letting me attend company events, said they were boring, said I'd hate the small talk, said I should stay home and relax. His longtime secretary, Denise, started calling him Richard instead of Mr. Carter, casual, familiar, in a way she never had in the 15 years she'd worked for him. Flowers started arriving at his office every week, beautiful arrangements, but never once did they arrive at our house. I told myself there was an explanation for each one. I was wrong about that, but I didn't know it yet. It was our anniversary, 19 years, and I decided to surprise him. I made his favorite lunch that morning, the turkey and Swiss he always ordered from the deli near our first apartment. The one I learned to make myself because it made him smile every single time. I packed it in the picnic basket his mother gave us as a wedding gift. I drove 40 minutes into the city, to the building with his name practically on the door, and I walked into the lobby feeling more nervous and hopeful than I had in months. I told the receptionist I was there to surprise my husband. That's when she told me he'd already left. With his wife. I stood there holding a picnic basket like a fool, and I said it again, slower this time. I'm his wife. I've been his wife for 19 years. The receptionist's hands started shaking slightly on the keyboard. She said, "Ma'am, I think you should speak with someone from HR." Another employee walked over, a man I didn't recognize, and he looked at me, then looked at the receptionist and quietly said, "I thought Mrs. Carter just left." Nobody was screaming. Nobody was dramatic. It was worse than that. It was quiet and confused, and everyone in that lobby seemed to already know something I didn't. An HR director named Susan came down and brought me into a small conference room, gentle, careful, the way you talk to someone about to receive terrible news. She said, "Mrs. Carter, I think there's been some confusion for a while now, and I need to show you something." She pulled up the company's internal event photos from the last 2 years. Corporate galas. Charity dinners. The company's 20th anniversary celebration. In every single photo, standing beside Richard, wearing a wedding ring, smiling for the cameras, introduced to clients and board members and reporters as Mrs. Carter, was a woman I had never met in my life. Her name was Vanessa. She'd been introduced to Richard's entire professional world as his wife for over a year. Hotel reservations under her name and his. A joint account at a bank I didn't recognize. Vacation photos from a trip to the coast that Richard told me was a solo business retreat. I sat in that conference room and I didn't cry. I just felt something settle in my chest, cold and very still. I drove home that afternoon in complete silence. I walked through our house like I was seeing it for the first time. I found the box of family photos in the closet, Molly's first day of kindergarten, our wedding album, the Christmas ornaments she made in preschool, the crayon drawings still taped inside a folder marked "Keep Forever" in Richard's own handwriting from years ago. I realized, sitting on the floor of that closet, that I hadn't lost my husband that morning in the lobby. I had been losing him for years, one missed dinner, one canceled trip, one unread letter at a time. I let myself cry that night, fully, completely, for the first time in months. And then the next morning I made coffee. I didn't scream at Richard when he came home that evening pretending nothing had happened. I didn't throw anything. Asked him, calmly, how long? He tried to explain, said it wasn't what it looked like, said Vanessa was just someone from a conference, said the photos were misunderstandings. I already knew every word out of his mouth was a lie, because I had the folder Susan gave me, printed, dated, time-stamped. I told him I needed time to think. What I actually needed was time to look closer. If you've stayed with me this far, subscribe, because what happened next changed every person sitting in that boardroom. I called my brother-in-law, Peter, who worked in corporate compliance for another firm downtown, and I asked him a question I never thought I'd need to ask. I said, if a CEO wanted to hide personal expenses inside company accounts, how would he do it? Peter went quiet for a moment, then said, Claire, get me everything you can find. Statements, emails, anything with his signature. I found the hotel receipts, dozens of them, charged to a corporate expense account meant for client entertainment. I found gala tickets for 2, always for 2, charged as business development expenses, the kind meant to attract new investors, not house a mistress in first-class seats. I found a company credit card statement with Vanessa's name listed as a marketing consultant, paid a monthly retainer for services that, according to the finance department's own records, never existed. I found insurance paperwork listing Vanessa as a dependent, filed the same year Richard quietly removed me from our joint policy without ever mentioning it. This wasn't just an affair. This was fraud. Shareholder money, spent on a woman the board believed was his wife, at events meant to represent the company with integrity. I gave everything to Peter. Peter gave everything to a lawyer, a careful, quiet woman named Angela Reyes, who specialized in exactly this kind of corporate misconduct. For 6 weeks, I said nothing to Richard about what I'd found. I smiled at dinner. I asked about his day. I let him believe I was simply hurt, simply grieving, simply deciding whether to forgive him. I was never deciding that. I was waiting for Angela to finish building the case, and for the company's own auditors, quietly alerted through an anonymous but very detailed complaint, to start asking questions Richard couldn't answer. The company's annual shareholder meeting was scheduled for early spring, the same event where, 1 year earlier, Richard had stood on stage and thanked his wife for her unwavering support, gesturing toward Vanessa in the front row while I sat at home, uninvited, told the event would bore me. This year, I was invited. Angela made sure of it. I sat quietly near the back as the board reviewed quarterly earnings. Then the floor opened for questions, and a compliance officer, a serious man named Mr. Doyle, stood and asked Richard to explain a series of expense reports flagged during a routine internal audit. Richard's smile faltered for just a second. He tried to explain them away, called it an accounting error, said he'd look into it personally. Mr. Doyle said the board had already looked into it. He read from a printed report. Business development expenses totaling over $300,000 over 18 months, tied to events attended by a woman with no verified consulting contract, no deliverables, and no record of ever performing marketing work for the company. The room went very quiet. Someone in the front row whispered something to the person beside them. Richard looked toward me for the first time since I'd walked in. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself, page by page, projected onto the screen behind him for every board member and major shareholder in that room to see. By the end of that meeting, the board voted to place Richard on immediate administrative leave, pending a full investigation. Within 2 months, the investigation confirmed everything Angela and Peter had already found, and Richard resigned before the board could formally remove him, which in this industry, everyone understood, meant the same thing. Vanessa disappeared from the company entirely within weeks. No severance, no goodbye, no more galas. The divorce took almost a year. I didn't ask for revenge in that courtroom. I only asked for what was fair, and the paper trail I'd handed my lawyer months earlier made fairness very easy to prove. Richard's parents called me once, awkward and apologetic. I was polite, but I didn't have much left to say to people who'd known him longest, and somehow never noticed either. Molly, who is 22 now, barely speaks to her father these days, not because I asked her to, but because she read the same documents I did. It's been a little over a year since that morning in the lobby. Last week I walked past that same office building downtown just to pick up a package from a shop nearby. There's a new name on the building entrance now, a new CEO entirely. I saw the receptionist, the same young woman from that day, and for a moment I thought she might not recognize me. But she stood up as I walked past, and she smiled, warm and genuine. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," she said. I smiled back gently. "No," I told her, "just Claire." And I walked out into the morning sun, no bitterness left in me, no speech to give, no lecture anyone needed to hear. Just quiet and finally mine again.